Arma verumque cano. Troiae qui primus amoris Italiam fato profagut Laviniaque venit.
Yeah. How long would you listen to something like that before you just clocked out or turned the channel? But that is exactly what it was like to go to church 700 years ago. It was done in Latin, and unless you lived in Italy, it just sounded like gibberish. Thanks to the Council of Toulouse in 1229, it was illegal to read the Bible, even if it was in Latin, until the 14th century. And this guy came along. His name is John Wycliffe, and he reasoned Jesus and the apostles, they taught in a language that people could understand. We should do the same thing. We've got to get the Bible into the language that people can understand. But yikes, did that cause a ruckus. And this painting, it lays out the whole picture. Look, this is a friar knocking the Word of God onto the ground because they didn't want the Bible in the language of the people. And here what we see, this fellow holding up this staff with the cross on top, symbolizing superstition and tradition. John Wycliffe on his sickbed, resisting it and rejecting it, instead clinging to the Bible. And here we see this fellow writing down the words that John Wycliffe spoke. He said, "I shall not die, but I shall live and declare the works of the Lord." These days, when theologians argue over the Bible, it's usually about how to interpret a verse or a phrase. It's hard to imagine that hundreds of years ago, theologians would fight, and I mean fight, over whether or not the Bible should actually be translated into a language that people could understand.
John Wycliffe said, "Those heretics who believe that lay people do not need to know God's law and that the things which priests have told them is enough do not deserve to be listened to. For the Bible is the faith of the church, and the more widely it becomes known, the better it will be. Therefore, the laity should know the faith. It should be taught in whatever language is most easily understood."
For John Wycliffe's insistence on reforming the church, he earned himself 5 heresy charges from the Pope, and he was summoned to this very chapel to give a testimony for his faith, and he spent the last 3 years of his life in banishment, taking advantage of the time, translating the scriptures into English. Now check this out. The Archbishop of Canterbury said, John Wycliffe has crowned his wickedness by translating the scriptures into English. Can you believe it?
Many of his followers were burned at the stake with their English Bibles tied around their necks. Very nice. Wycliffe himself, however, was not burned at the stake while he was alive. But 44 years later, the Roman Catholic Church dug up his bones, put them on trial, burned them, and scattered the ashes in the river.